Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to RobMotive. Hey, I was out cruising around the web today and I had a thought. You know, what are the top things that Toyota Tacoma fans complain about? You know, the people that actually have the trucks. And I was wondering about this because, of course, we have the 2024 coming, and I'm going to be very curious to see if Toyota actually addresses any of these. You know, if they fix them, if they're listening to us. So we're going to run through them real quick. The top things that Toyota Tacoma fans complain about. Number one, the stock headlights. People say that they want, what do they call it? Adaptive headlights, but regulations apparently within the US don't allow for them. Now, this truck, which is a 2023, it's a TRD off-road, has the LED headlights. And from my limited time with them, I don't drive a ton at night, but I do drive at night. I haven't had any problems with them. I mean, it's a nice, clean, white light. I'm not really sure what people are looking for there, but who knows? Maybe Toyota will come up with some super LED light. I don't know. Next up, number two, and this one I think is a little bit petty, but I have actually experienced this myself. Large bottles don't fit in the cup holders, and the cup holders are not deep enough. Now, the deep enough part I kind of get, because I've had instances before where I've had taller bottles, set them in there, and they're top heavy. They kind of fall over because they don't go down far enough in the wells, if you will, of the cup holders. I get that. But in this day and age, you know, with all the big gulps and giant, large, extra large things, I think Toyota does need to give us a little bit bigger and deeper cup holder. They certainly have the opportunity to do that now in the redesign. Going to be interesting to see if they do. Again, I think it's a little petty, but I can relate. Number three, the steering wheel controls are backwards, meaning they're not intuitive. When you hit the button to change the volume or skip a track or whatever on your MP3 player, they're backwards. They're not the right way. I have that happen too, where I'll try to turn the volume up, I hit the wrong end of it or whatever, the wrong button, and it goes down. So I can kind of relate to this one myself. It's another one that I think is kind of petty because honestly, me anyway, I don't use those buttons very often, only occasionally. I typically grab the knob, which by the way, I hope Toyota maintains. You know, years ago, Honda got rid of the knob. It was just this touch thing. People hated it. They hated it so much that Honda listened and they brought back the knob. Number four, rear end skipping on rough roads. This is another one that I really haven't noticed much, and I gotta say, down here in South Texas, we've got some pretty darn rough roads. I used to notice that in trucks, primarily full size, where you'd be on a really rough road and maybe take a bit of a turn or something, and the truck would be kind of bouncing a bit, and you could feel what seemed to be the rear end kind of skipping out. I really don't notice that a lot, if ever, on my Toyota Tacoma or any of the recent ones that I've had, but apparently some folks are more sensitive to that than I am because that's one of the biggest complaints from Toyota Tacoma fans. Number five, the Tacoma doesn't allow for easy modifications. This one I really have to disagree with because I've done a lot of mods on the truck and most of them are bolt-on. I mean, you don't really have to adapt anything. Some of the examples that people give, fitting larger tires in the wheel wells. There's not enough space. Well, it's not a Jeep, right? It's not a great big wide open area. I mean, it does have an enclosed fender area, if you will. I don't know how they could really get around that other than to have these ginormous openings with little dinky stock tires in them because, you know, they're not going to put out trucks with great big wheels and tires and stuff in them, right? I think that's a little picky. Another thing people say is the hidden roof rack holes are a problem. You know, if you've ever put a roof rack on top of the Tacoma, right up there, there is a trim piece, a rubber piece, weather stripping sort of. You have to pull that off. Underneath are taped over and painted over threaded holes. There is a little bit of work to get to them. I mean, you can pull that strip off by hand. You don't even need a tool. And then you kind of just stab or puncture where the screw is, or the screw hole, the bolt hole is, to go ahead and thread something in. It's easy to see. It's not hard to do. Yeah, it takes a little bit more effort than if they were uncovered just sitting up there, but I mean, come on, man. Lastly, no holes for rock rails. I'm not exactly sure what they mean here either, unless it's the bolt-on method that's being used. I mean, there are holes under there, but they're not right in the frame, I guess. Maybe that's the big problem, and that would make sense to me. I mean, if you're going to put rock rails in where you're going to be balancing the truck on rocks, you don't want it on the trim work of the truck. You'd want it in the frame, and I guess that's probably what they're talking about. Next up, lack of headroom for raising the driver's seat. You know, this is funny to me. For a long time, the complaint was the seat's not adjustable. You can't move it up, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. So they put a 10-way power adjustable seat in it. Now people are complaining that you can't go up high enough without hitting your head on the roof. Well, I would say if that is a problem, you're probably too big to be in a mid-sized truck to begin with. I mean, if you're 6'4" and your torso is twice as long as mine, your head's going to hit inside a Toyota Tacoma. I mean, the way that I'm proportioned, I guess, and by the way, I'm 5'9.5". I don't have any issue. I probably have about, 3 inches or so before my head hits the ceiling. Not really a big problem for me. I can certainly understand it if you're a bigger person, but probably should be in a Tundra. Number 7, the hatred, pure unadulterated hatred of drum brakes. People do not like drum brakes in the Tacoma. Again, another one I'd kind of have to take issue with. I mean, I hit the brake, the truck stops. That's all I really want it to do. I don't really care how it functions as long as it stops. The argument is that drum brakes are harder to work on, maybe more expensive to replace. I suppose if you do your own work on brakes, I'm not a brake guy, it's just not something I would do, but I guess I can understand that if indeed they're more difficult to work on. Yeah, having something simpler would be better. The thing that they kind of compare it to is power windows versus roll type, the old roll windows with the handle. You know, they both work, but one is a lot easier, at least in function. Now, maybe a bad example, I don't know. Lastly, the big one. This is the huge one, the one I hear all the time. I get questions about it. Transmission gear hunting. Automatic transmission gear hunting. Especially prevalent on long, steep grades. Maybe it's because of where I live. I live in South Texas, in the valley, in the RGV, and it's primarily flat. I'm not doing a lot of climbing, so I don't notice this. Now, I'm not going to totally discount it. I get so many comments and complaints about it that, yeah, I believe it does exist. We'll see if Toyota does anything about it. I don't know. I mean, you could always buy a manual transmission, right? I don't know. Anyway, those are just the top things Toyota Tacoma fans complain about. I can see some credence in some of them, I guess, but most of them, I think I'd call pretty picky. Either way, it's going to be interesting to see if Toyota does anything to address these things, because if they're listening, I certainly think they would. Leave a comment. Let me know if any of these bother you. I'd be curious to know. Also, real quick, I do have 2 additional channels. Mod Driven, all about the Honda Civic, and RobMotive JT, all about the Jeep Gladiator. Check them out, and if you're interested, why not subscribe? And while you're at it, smash the subscribe button here too. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.